The night was wide and gentle over the land of U. Stars shimmered like lanterns caught in the folds of a cosmic sea. The grass swayed with a sleepy rhythm, whispering secrets to the wind. And somewhere, in the middle of that hush, on a quiet hill where time itself seemed to pause, two figures rested beneath the heavens, a boy with a heart full of courage, and a dog whose soul stretched wider than the sky. Finn and Jake. Their names are legends now, carved into the quiet memory of every river and tree. But before they were heroes, before crowns, curses, and candy kingdoms, they were wanderers of the dream between worlds. The night remembered them not as warriors, but as listeners, as keepers of a forgotten song, Oz. In that song, every note was a piece of their journey. The laughter after a long battle, the quiet sighs between adventures, the simple warmth of friendship shared in the flicker of a campfire. And somewhere beyond those sounds lay the truth of who they were, not just heroes of U, but dreamers who once looked up at the stars and asked, "Why are we here?" The stars, of course, never answered in words. They shimmered, as they always did, in silence. Yet the silence was kind. It held meaning, the kind you don't hear, but feel. Perhaps that was the real beginning of their story. Not the first battle or quest, but that silent question shared under an endless sky. Pause. Time in U has always moved like honey. It drips and folds, mixing past and present until one becomes the other. Finn, lying on his back, stared up at the constellations and imagined that somewhere those lights were old heroes looking down, the first explorers of the multiverse whispering through the dark. Jake, beside him, stretched his paw lazily, tail wagging with sleepy amusement. "Think they remember us, dude?" Finn asked softly. Jake chuckled. "Maybe we remember them." And in that playful thought lay something profound. What if memory flowed both ways? What if their adventures were echoes of older tales carried across time like ripples on water? Pause. Some say the land of U was built on the bones of forgotten worlds. Civilizations that fell, dreams that melted into candy, and magic that rewove itself into laughter. Every hero was born from another hero's dream, and so Finn and Jake's courage too might have come from long before they were born. Perhaps once a child stood on a different hill, under a different sky, asking the same question. Perhaps that child dreamed of them, and if that's true, then maybe all courage is connected. Every act of kindness, every moment of bravery, each one part of a single, endless thread that stretches through all worlds. Pause. The stars pulsed brighter for a moment, as if agreeing, and the wind carried a faint hum. Something older than sound, deeper than thought. Finn felt it in his chest. Jake did too. It was as though the world was remembering itself. They sat there, still and content, two small souls beneath infinity. The night sighed, and the song beneath the stars continued. Soft, eternal, unseen oars. In that calm, one could almost sense the truth, that heroism is not born in battle, but in moments of stillness, when a heart chooses wonder over fear. That was the first secret of Finn and Jake's heroic past. Not their victories, but their listening. For in listening, they became part of the story that was already being told by the universe. The hill faded into darkness. The stars blinked one by one like sleepy eyes closing. And the night whispered, "There is more." Pause. Dawn came softly, brushing the world in honeyed gold. The forest shimmered with dew, and the faint echo of the stars lingered in the air like perfume after a dream. Finn awoke before the birds, his heart still full of questions. Jake was snoring gently, his body stretched around a tree trunk like a lazy scarf. Somewhere in the distance, the river sang. It was no ordinary river. Locals called it the River of Remembering because its waters reflected not only faces but memories. If you looked long enough, you could see fragments of who you once were, or who you were meant to become. Finn approached it quietly, each step slow, reverent. The river's surface was smooth as glass, and when he peered into it, he saw not his reflection, but 1,000 versions of himself, a warrior, a child, an old man, a shadow, all drifting in a slow, circular current. Jake yawned behind him.
Dude, are you looking at yourself again?
Finn smiled faintly.
I think it's looking at me. There's something timeless about reflection.
To see oneself not as a single story, but as many, overlapping, shimmering, all true in their own way. The river seemed to whisper this lesson: you are not who you were, and yet you are always becoming yourself again. That's how heroes live beyond time. Not in statues or songs, but in every ripple of courage that flows forward. Finn dipped his hand into the water. It was cool, almost electric. Images flickered beneath the surface. A younger Finn, swinging his sword with joy. Another kneeling in loss. Yet another, sitting quietly beside Jake as old friends, smiling through wrinkles and fading light. Each version seemed aware of the others, connected by something unseen. He realized then that every adventure, every choice was not lost. It flowed into the same stream. Jake joined him, gazing lazily into the current. So what's the verdict? Still a total hero? Finn laughed softly. Maybe. Just a part of one? Jake wagged his tail. Yeah, man.
Maybe we're all parts of something bigger, like
cosmic puzzle pieces. The words hung in the air, simple but profound, because maybe that's what Ooh was. Not a world, but a mosaic of lives remembering each other. The Candy People, the Fire Kingdom, even the Lich, all threads in the same tapestry. Some bright, some dark, but all necessary for the pattern to exist. To remember, after all, is not just to look back. It is to belong us. As the sun rose higher, Finn watched the light scatter across the water. It turned everything gold. Even the shadows seemed kind. He thought of the people he'd met. Princess Bubblegum's steady gaze, Marceline's lonely songs, the Ice King's fractured mind. Each of them had stories that bled into his own. Were they enemies, friends, or something deeper? Mirrors reflecting parts of himself? Perhaps being a hero meant embracing all of them, the noble, the lost, the flawed, the afraid. To see the whole picture and still choose to love it. The river gurgled softly and a leaf floated by, spinning gently. Finn watched it drift downstream, wondering where it might end up. He imagined it traveling through kingdoms, under bridges, past ruins of old empires, carrying whispers of this very moment. Maybe that was how memory worked. Not as something trapped in the past, but something always moving, changing shape, touching new lives. He turned to Jake. You ever think about where we go when we stop adventuring? Jake smiled sleepily. Wherever the story needs us next. The simplicity of that answer wrapped around Finn like a blanket. He realized that stories, like rivers, never really end. They just find new paths to flow. And even when forgotten, they still hum beneath the surface of time. Maybe one day, another hero would stand here and see echoes of them. Two friends who laughed too loud, dreamed too much, and wandered where no map could follow. As Finn closed his eyes, the sun warmed his face, and for a moment he could almost feel the heartbeat of slow, ancient, endless. He felt the pulse of the earth, the whisper of the trees, the sigh of the sky. It all seemed to say, remember, because remembering is the first act of love. And love, in its quiet way, is the truest form of heroism. The river shimmered one last time before the wind stirred, breaking its perfect surface into ripples that caught the light like liquid crystal. Jake stretched and said, "Breakfast?" Finn smiled, turning away. "Yeah, but maybe after one more look." He stared once more into the river. This time, the reflection smiled back, Oars. And so the journey continued, not toward glory or battle, but toward understanding, toward the soft places where memory and meaning meet. The river of remembering flowed on, singing its eternal lullaby, and in its song, Finn and Jake began to sense the next part of their tale, a path not yet walked, waiting just beyond the horizon, orders to be continued. The wind that morning carried the scent of pine and sunlight. Their old tree house, perched on the edge of the whispering woods, rose before them like a memory made solid. Wooden boards creaked softly in greeting, vines curling lovingly around the frame. Birds nested in the rafters now, and a faint hum of magic shimmered in the air. Jake's tail wagged lazily.
Feels like coming home, huh?
Finn smiled. Yeah, but it's different somehow. Like the walls remember us, pause, the treehouse of heroes. Not just a home, but a living memory of countless adventures. Its walls had seen joy and sorrow, triumph and loss. The echoes of laughter still hung in the beams, and if you listened closely, the wood itself seemed to sigh. "Thank you." Finn ran his hand along the railing. It was rough, yet familiar, every scratch and mark a story. There, a burn from a failed experiment. There, a crack from a wild party with Marceline. And over there, the faint outline of a heart carved during one of those rare quiet nights, when he and Jake had simply wanted to remember being alive, Oars. As he stepped inside, dust motes floated in golden shafts of light. Everything smelled of old adventures, a blend of metal, magic, and rain. The sword rack was empty, but it hummed faintly as though waiting. A map of Ooh lay rolled on the table, edges curled like ancient parchment. Finn sat. The silence wrapped around him, gentle as a blanket. For a long time, he just breathed, letting memory unfold naturally. Jake stretched beside him, forming a lazy hammock shape. "Remember when we thought this was the center of the universe?" Finn chuckled. Maybe it still is, and maybe it was. Because the center of any universe isn't marked by stars or coordinates, but by connection. The treehouse had been the heart of their shared dream, the axis where friendship and courage met, Oars. Outside, the forest whispered. Leaves rustled like soft applause. Finn closed his eyes, and for a moment he saw the ghosts of their past selves. Younger versions of them, running, laughing, fighting imaginary monsters. They faded in and out of the light, smiling without sadness. Maybe that's what time does. It doesn't erase us. It simply layers us, one self over another like translucent paint, creating a portrait that is never quite finished. In that layered truth, Finn realized something. That even now, when everything had changed, he and Jake were still those same dreamers, just older versions of the same heartbeat, was he? He thought of all the nights they had spent here, talking about what it meant to be good, wondering if heroes ever get to rest. Jake had once said, maybe being a hero isn't about saving stuff.
Maybe it's about noticing it, like really noticing it. At the time, Finn had laughed.
But now, sitting in the quiet glow of their old home, he understood. Heroism was attention. To see the beauty in an ordinary sunrise, to feel the small miracles of every breath. To love the world, even when it forgets to love you back, Oz. The treehouse groaned softly as a breeze passed through. The sound was like a sigh of contentment. Finn leaned back, closing his eyes. "Do you ever think the house dreams of us?" Jake grinned. "All the time, dude. That's why it creaks when it rains." He imagined the walls dreaming, of sword fights, of pancakes, of sleepy afternoons and inside jokes. And maybe, just maybe, the house was still keeping watch, a guardian of stories too soft to be remembered by history alone. Oz. As the sun dipped low, they climbed to the roof one last time. The view was as it had always been, endless fields, a horizon painted in molten orange, clouds drifting like thought. Finn whispered, "It's funny. We've traveled across worlds, met gods, fought shadows, and yet this view still feels like the biggest thing." Jake nodded, eyes half closed. "Yeah, 'cause it's ours." They sat in silence, listening to the forest breathe, and as twilight folded around them, the tree house, old, gentle, alive, began to hum a tune only they could hear. It was the lullaby of homecoming. Pause. When night finally arrived, the stars gathered again, watching, and Finn knew some places never stop loving you. They simply wait for you to remember. He smiled, his voice soft as the dark. "Let's keep going, Jake. There's more to remember still." The stars twinkled as though agreeing, and somewhere in the distance, another story stirred awake Oz. The next morning, mist rolled across the valley like a soft blanket. It smelled of rain and ash, the scent of worlds that had burned and been reborn. Finn and Jake walked in silence, following an invisible path through the fog. Each footstep sounded like a heartbeat echoing through eternity. Somewhere ahead lay a ruin older than memory, the Hall of Echoes. It was said that every sound ever made in Ooh eventually found its way there. Laughter, cries, confessions, songs, but even whispers, all gathered in that endless hall, waiting to be heard again. Oz. When they arrived, it was quiet. Columns of stone rose from the mist like ancient giants. The walls shimmered faintly, covered in runes that shifted when you looked too long. The air was thick, vibrating with unspoken words. Finn stepped forward, his voice almost a whisper.
"Can you hear it?"
Jake tilted his head. "Yeah, it's like the air's breathing." And then they heard it. Faint at first, then growing clearer. A chorus of voices overlapping, gentle. Their own laughter from long ago. The echo of battles fought and won. The cry of loss after saying goodbye. Every sound, every heartbeat looping eternally in the mist. Pause. Finn reached out, touching one of the glowing runes. It pulsed beneath his fingertips, and suddenly he was there, standing in the past. He saw himself as a boy again, chasing adventure, unaware of the weight of destiny. He saw Jake, carefree and golden, dancing under the sun. He saw the people they loved alive and shining, but these weren't ghosts. They were memories, wrapped in sound, pure emotion replayed by the world itself. The hall was not a tomb. It was a remembrance. Oz. Jake's voice broke the silence. "You think all of Oo's been listening this whole time?" Finn smiled faintly. "Maybe the world keeps our echoes so it doesn't forget how to feel." And maybe that was the truth. Maybe the universe itself was sentimental, unable to let go of the small sounds that made life worth living.
"A laugh, a name."
A promise whispered at dusk. Oz. The echoes swirled around them, growing softer now. No longer memories of others, but reflections of the present. Finn heard himself breathing. He heard the faint heartbeat of Jake beside him. He heard silence, vast, forgiving, eternal. For a moment, he felt as if time itself had stopped to listen. He thought of the people who were gone, friends scattered through realms, adventures lost to the tide of years. But in the hall they were not gone. Their echoes still danced. Pause. And he realized something. Perhaps eternity is not about never ending. Perhaps it's about never being forgotten. Each moment, once lived, continues to hum quietly in the background of the universe, a note in the eternal song. Jake looked at him.
Feels kind of sad, huh?
Finn shook his head.
No, feels
Peaceful. They stood in the center of the hall, surrounded by the symphony of everything they'd ever been. And slowly, Finn began to hum. A simple tune, the song he and Jake had made up years ago by the campfire. The echoes joined him, repeating, harmonizing. The sound became endless, a spiral of memory and light. Pause. When the last note faded, the hall fell still again. But something lingered, not sadness, not joy, but wholeness, a reminder that every sound, every act of love or courage still exists somewhere, waiting to be heard again. Finn smiled softly. Guess that's what being alive means, huh?
leaving echoes, Jake nodded.
And making sure they sound good. They laughed, the sound echoing sweetly through the ruins. Another ripple in eternity, yes. As they left, the mist began to lift. The world brightened slightly, revealing the curve of distant hills. Behind them, the hall shimmered. And for a heartbeat, Finn thought he saw something within it. The silhouettes of every friend they had ever known, waving goodbye. Or maybe waving hello. He didn't turn back. He didn't need to. The past was no longer behind him. It walked beside him softly, like an echo made flesh. Pause. They stepped into sunlight. The road stretched ahead, calm and golden, and in the warmth of that morning, Finn felt lighter, as though time itself had forgiven him. Somewhere, far away, the treehouse dreamed, and the river of remembering sang, and the stars above hummed the quiet melody of forever. Pause to be continued. The forest thinned as they wandered deeper into the valley. Morning light poured through the trees like melted gold. Every leaf shimmered with dew, every sound a whisper of something ancient remembering itself. For a while, Finn and Jake walked without speaking. It wasn't silence born of distance, but of knowing, a shared peace, the kind that doesn't need words. At last they reached a clearing, and in the center stood an immense mirror, half buried in moss and ivy. Its frame was carved from starlight and bone, glowing faintly even in daylight. "The dreamer's mirror," Jake murmured.
Didn't think this place was real. Finn's voice dropped to a hush.
"What does it do?" Jake shrugged.
Shows you.
"Everything. Or maybe just what you need to see." Pause. The glass shimmered. When Finn looked into it, his reflection didn't appear at once. Instead, ripples spread across its surface, like a pond stirred by wind. Then faces emerged. Not strangers, but versions of himself. The brave Finn who fought the Lich, the sorrowful Finn who lost his arm, the wise Finn who had aged beyond fear, and in between them all a child, eyes bright,
Heart unbroken, holding the same boundless wonder that had started everything. The reflections moved together like waves.
forming and dissolving as if the mirror were breathing. Jake stepped up beside him.
Kind of trippy, huh?
Finn nodded slowly. "I don't think it's showing me.
I think it's showing me.
What I've carried." Pause. The mirror seemed to agree. It pulsed gently, the surface shimmering brighter. Images flashed. Scenes from old adventures, laughter and tears, victories and quiet defeats. Yet, beneath all of them, Finn noticed one constant thing: Jake's presence. In every timeline, every life, every reflection. Jake was there, sometimes as a dog, sometimes as a light, sometimes as something nameless, a feeling, a warmth, a rhythm. He turned. "You've always been there," he said softly. Jake smiled, eyes twinkling. "Guess I'm hard to get rid of." But in that humor, something deeper stirred, the truth of their bond. They weren't just friends or brothers. They were fragments of the same dream, two halves of an echo, shaped by love and time. Pause. The mirror brightened suddenly, flooding the clearing with light. Finn saw not faces now, but threads. Thin golden lines, stretching into infinity. Each thread was a life, a story, a heartbeat. And where two threads met, light bloomed. Tiny sparks of connection, forming constellations of meaning. One of those lights pulsed stronger than the rest. It was theirs, Finn and Jake, entwined, shining together through every possible world. Finn whispered, "Is this what we are?" The mirror rippled back, the light bending gently into shapes that looked like words. All things are remembered by love. Pause. He felt tears rise, not of sadness, but of recognition. He saw now that their friendship was more than a coincidence of fate. It was the universe speaking to itself, saying, "You are not alone." Jake, sensing the heaviness, leaned on him. "Hey, buddy, don't get all cosmic and weepy on me." Finn laughed through his tears. Too late. They sat before the mirror for a long time, letting the light play across their faces. And as it dimmed, Finn realized the real reflection wasn't in the glass at all. It was in the way Jake's presence steadied his heart. Pause. Perhaps the dreamer's mirror wasn't meant to show who you were, but to remind you of the one truth that shapes all stories, that nothing real is ever lost. It only changes form, finding new ways to shine. As the sun sank, they stood. The mirror faded into mist, its task complete. And as they walked away, Finn whispered, "What do you think the dreamer was dreaming of?" Jake yawned.
Us, dude.
"Always us," the forest answered with a soft rustle, a sound like agreement. Pause. And when night finally gathered, the stars reflected faintly in unseen glass, as though the heavens themselves were dreaming of their reflection. By dusk, the air had turned cool and weightless. They climbed a ridge that opened into an impossible sight, a canyon of clouds stretching endlessly below, with bridges of light linking floating islands that shimmered like jewels. Above them, the sky bent in strange colors: violet, indigo, rose. This was no ordinary sky. It was the sky between worlds, where the boundaries of time and space blurred into a single endless breath. Jake squinted. "Whoa, trippy sky highway." Finn smiled softly. "Feels like we're walking through a dream someone forgot to wake up from." Pause. The wind hummed with faint voices. Not words, but tones like an orchestra tuning itself to eternity. Each bridge of light flickered as they crossed, their footsteps leaving tiny ripples behind. It was beautiful, but it carried a strange weight. The kind of beauty that reminds you of how small you are, yet how infinite you might become. Halfway across, they stopped. Finn gazed out at the floating islands below, fragments of old worlds, each glowing with faint memories. Some held forests, others crumbling castles or cities made of glass. Each one seemed to pulse gently, alive with forgotten stories. Jake tilted his head.
You think every place we've ever been is down there? Maybe, Finn murmured.
Or maybe they're places we haven't dreamed yet. Pause. The sky shifted color, now a deep, tranquil blue, filled with slow-moving stars. Finn felt time loosen around him, like the universe exhaling. He realized how often they'd been caught in the noise of adventure, fighting, running, saving, but here, in this vast in-between, there was only silence and awareness. It was the pause between heartbeats, the breath between creation and remembering. And in that stillness he began to sense something, a hum that wasn't quite sound, coming from deep within. It was the same hum he'd heard beneath the stars on that first night of reflection, the same pulse that connected him to Jake and Jake to the world. Pause. Jake noticed it too. Hear that? It's like the world's purring. Finn nodded.
Maybe it's not the world. Maybe it's us. They stood together, eyes half closed, feeling the rhythm pass through them. Slow, steady, kind.
It wasn't a voice, but a knowing. And that knowing said, you are part of everything. And everything is part of you. For a moment, Finn saw flashes, visions of other versions of himself and Jake, flying through stars, tending tiny gardens in other realms, laughing as oceans formed, or simply sitting quietly at the dawn of time, each one real, each one living the same story in different ways. As he felt weightless, no fear, no longing, just belonging. Even the wind seemed to whisper approval. Jake broke the spell with a grin. Man, if we're cosmic beings or whatever, that means I can totally nap anywhere. Finn laughed. You already do. They walked again, the bridge glowing faintly beneath their steps. And soon they reached a platform where the light widened into a vast circular field, the horizon's edge. There the stars gathered in swirling patterns like thoughts forming in the mind of creation. Each one blinked as though aware of their presence. Finn felt humbled. Jake simply wagged his tail, tall pause. The sky between worlds began to hum louder now, and Finn realized what it was doing. It was remembering them, every step, every breath recorded in light. Their journey wasn't just across it was across existence itself. They weren't moving through time. Time was moving through them. He whispered, We're not travelers, Jake. We're dreamers walking inside the universe's heart. Jake smiled. Then let's not wake up. They stood at the horizon's edge, watching creation breathe. And in that moment, all questions fell away. No need for answers. Just stillness, oars. The sky shimmered, folding into a slow aurora of peace. And though they could have stayed forever, the road called again, gently, kindly, like a lullaby urging them onward. As they stepped into the next bridge of light, Finn looked back once more. Behind them, the paths they had crossed glowed softly, each bridge remaining lit,
as if the sky itself refused to forget them, or somewhere in that infinite calm.
The echoes of all worlds seemed to whisper together. Keep walking, heroes. The story loves you, and the two figures moved onward, small but shining, walking not through worlds anymore, but through meaning itself. The bridges of light faded behind them, dissolving into mist that shimmered like memory. Ahead, a soft glow pulsed from the horizon, steady, golden, alive. They followed it until the air grew warm, carrying the faint scent of smoke and honey. When the fog thinned, Finn and Jake stood before a valley of fire that did not burn. Flames rose from the ground like petals, their light smooth and tender, each flicker singing a low hum. In the center of it all blazed a single ember, brighter than the sun, hovering in stillness. The first flame, Jake whispered.
Never thought I'd see it. Finn looked in awe. Is this where everything began?
Jake nodded slowly. Where friendship began, at least.
That's what the old stories say. Pause. The valley hummed with memory.
Finn felt warmth flood his chest, not heat, but recognition. Every spark, every wave of light felt like laughter, like the gentle echo of someone calling his name long ago. He closed his eyes.
And in that brightness he saw two figures, faint, spectral, moving through an endless void. One was made of light, the other of sound.
They wandered, lonely but curious, until they met in the empty dark. And when they touched, they laughed, and that laugh became the first flame. Pause. Finn inhaled sharply. The image faded, leaving him trembling. "Jake, that was us," Jake smiled softly. "Maybe not us, but yeah, some version." The first ones, the idea didn't frighten him. It felt natural, like remembering a dream you'd known all along. They weren't just heroes of O, they were the echo of that first laughter.
Reborn again and again, so the world would never forget how friendship felt. The flame pulsed brighter,
and Finn heard faint whispers. Every bond is born from the same light. Every love is the first flame remembering itself. He turned to Jake, his voice barely a breath. "So this is where everything we are came from?" Jake nodded. "Guess so, dude. Every time we help someone, every time we laugh, we're just feeding the fire." Pause. The valley brightened.
Around them, visions unfolded. Scenes of countless lives across countless worlds. Two adventurers sharing bread beneath strange moons.
A child and a wolf running through eternal snow. Two stars orbiting each other in endless dance. All were different.
All were the same.
Each one a reflection of the first flame. Friendship becoming form. Finn whispered, "It never ends." Jake grinned. "Good. I like loops." Pause. They sat by the glowing ember, feeling the hum of existence vibrate softly through their bones. Finn's hand rested on the ground, and he felt warmth spreading outward, connecting everything, the soil, the sky, Jake himself. He realized that all of all of creation, was built from that same spark. Every creature's heartbeat was a tiny echo of the first flame, saying quietly, "You belong." The flame flickered gently in response, and the valley sighed with contentment. For a long time, they simply watched, breathing together, and as the warmth wrapped around them, Finn understood that their adventures had never been about winning or losing, but about remembering ours. He turned to Jake. "Do you think the flame ever goes out?" Jake shook his head.
Nah, even if it dims, somebody somewhere laughs again. And there it is, boom, back alive. Finn smiled.
Then maybe we never really die either. Exactly, man. We just keep the light moving. Pause. The first flame swelled once more, then dimmed to a calm glow, as if acknowledging their understanding. When they finally rose to leave, the fire parted gently, clearing a golden path forward. Every step they took left tiny trails of warmth behind, like footprints made of memory. Finn glanced back at the valley. "We'll carry it, right?" Jake nodded. "Always." And as they walked on, the flame's hum followed. Quiet, steady, eternal. Pause. Night returned, softer than ever. They walked until the ground turned to grass again. Tall, silver blades waving under moonlight. The air smelled of mint and rain. Fireflies drifted lazily through the mist, blinking like slow heartbeats. In the distance spread a field so vast it swallowed the horizon. The infinite meadow, where lost stories came to rest. Finn and Jake entered without fear. The grass shimmered under their feet, whispering as though each blade held a secret. Every few steps they saw shapes, faint, dreamlike forms of people and creatures they once knew. Not ghosts, but memories taking a walk, oars. Finn knelt and touched the ground. It pulsed gently, alive with countless heartbeats. "This place, it's everyone," he murmured. Jake stretched, tail curling. "Yup. All the friends, all the foes, all the weirdos, everyone's here somewhere." As they wandered, the memories grew clearer. There was Princess Bubblegum, tending a garden of glowing candy flowers, Marceline strumming a spectral bass, her melody drifting like wind. Even the Ice King smiling faintly as he built tiny snow castles that melted into stars. 8. The meadow wasn't sad, it was serene, a place where endings and beginnings held hands. Finn realized this was where all stories eventually came, not to stop, but to rest. To exhale, he looked at Jake. "Do you think we'll end up here someday?" Jake grinned. "Buddy, I think we already are." Pause. They lay down in the grass, staring at the sky. Above them, constellations shifted slowly, patterns forming and dissolving, as though the universe were rewriting its own memory. Finn felt the ground breathing beneath him. He felt tiny pulses of light moving through the soil. Every past adventure, every love, every goodbye, all flowing together into a single, gentle rhythm. It was the heartbeat of the meadow, the heartbeat of everything. Pause. As he listened, a new sound joined. Laughter, soft and far away. He recognized it immediately. The laughter of their younger selves echoing across time. He saw them running through the field, wooden swords in hand, chasing dreams as bright as dawn. They weren't gone. They were here, layered in the same space, the same breath. Jake whispered, "Guess time really is stretchy." Finn smiled. "You'd know." They laughed together, and the sound drifted upward, joining the countless other echoes that shimmered across the night. Pause. Then the meadow began to glow brighter. From every direction, lights rose from the grass, fireflies, stars, and souls blending into one gentle illumination. The whole world seemed to exhale. Finn felt his heartbeat slow, syncing perfectly with the rhythm of the universe. In that moment, he wasn't a hero or a wanderer. He was simply part of the story. And that, he realized, was the truest peace. Pause. He thought of everyone who had walked this path before, of courage, loss, and laughter shared across ages. All those moments, still alive in the meadow, whispering softly, "Thank you." Jake broke the quiet.
"Hey, Finn? Yeah?
"Even if all this ends someday."
I'm glad it was you." Finn turned, eyes glimmering.
"Me too, bro." Pause. They sat there until the first hints of dawn painted the edges of the world. And as the sun began to rise, the meadow shimmered once more, every blade of grass glowing with golden dew. It was as if the first flame had followed them here, reborn in every drop of morning light. Finn stood, stretching. "Time to move again?" Jake yawned.
"Time to keep dreaming," the meadow hummed in reply.
The sound of eternity resting easy within its roots. Pause. And as they walked onward through the tall, shining grass, their footprints faded instantly, not lost, but absorbed, becoming part of the story that would guide whoever came next. The infinite meadow fell silent again, but if one listened closely beneath the hum of the world, a quiet voice could still be heard saying, "They were here, they loved well, and the world remembers." Pause. Beyond the infinite meadow, the land sank into twilight again. Finn and Jake followed a narrow path that sloped gently downward until the air smelled of rain and stone. Somewhere below they could hear it, the slow murmur of water, endless and deep. They came to the edge of a vast underground cavern. From ceiling to floor, every surface shimmered with light reflected from a single river. A silver stream so wide it seemed to have no banks. It flowed without sound at first glance, but when Finn listened closely, he could hear voices inside it, whispers, laughter, tears,
all blending into a single note. "The river beneath all things," Jake said quietly.
It's what keeps the world remembering itself. Pause. They stepped closer. The water was clear as glass, but inside it moved whole scenes. Memories of lives, stories, dreams. Finn saw himself at every age, the small boy with the wooden sword, the restless teen chasing stars, the older man he had yet to become, sitting by a campfire alone but smiling. Each reflection looked up and nodded at him.
No sadness. Only recognition. Pause. He reached a hand into the river.
The moment his skin touched the surface, he felt it, a rush of warmth, like being held by everything at once. He saw the world not as a map, but as a heartbeat. Every forest, every creature, every forgotten dream, all flowing in rhythm, all part of the same pulse. Jake stepped beside him and dipped a paw in. Instantly his body shimmered with faint, golden light, stretching out in ripples across the water. For a moment, they could see the pattern their lives had woven. Two lines crossing again and again through time, leaving trails of laughter and courage. Finn whispered, "All our adventures."
They were part of this.
Jake nodded. "Yep, every wave we made came back here eventually. This river's just the long memory of it all." Pause. The current shifted, and the water began to glow brighter. Shapes emerged within the current. Faces, fragments of stories. There was tree trunks offering pie, the flame princess shining with fierce compassion, BMO dancing on a windowsill, the Lich dissolving into stillness. Even the darkest memories were here, gentle now, washed clean by time. The river accepted everything, even pain, turning it into motion. Finn stared, awed. "It forgives everything," Jake smiled.
Nah, man, it doesn't need to. It just remembers.
"That's enough." Pause. They sat by the bank for a long time, letting the rhythms slow their breathing. It wasn't sleep, but something softer, a surrender of weight. Finn realized that every choice, every mistake, every laugh had been necessary to bring them here. All the threads, all the chaos, part of the same song. When they finally rose, the river shimmered brighter, almost as if bowing. A low voice drifted from the current, so faint it could have been the echo of their own thoughts. To understand the story,
one must first become still enough to hear the water. Pause. Finn took one last look at his reflection.
The river smiled back, older, calmer, infinite. He turned to Jake. "Where do we go now?" Jake pointed ahead, where the cavern walls opened into light.
Up, always up. Together they walked forward, the water glowing behind them like liquid starlight.
And though they left the cavern, they carried the rhythm of that river in their bones. A reminder that the past was never gone, only flowing quietly beneath their steps. Pause. They climbed until the earth itself thinned, until the air tasted of clouds. Ahead stood a single arch of light. A door, half open, humming like a heartbeat. The door of dawn. The final gate every traveller meets, whether waking or dreaming. They paused before it. Finn felt no fear, only stillness. The world behind him shimmered in memory, the meadow, the flame, the river, all folding gently into the light. Jake's tail wagged slowly. "You feel that, dude?"
It's like everything's saying goodbye, but also hello. Finn smiled faintly.
"Yeah, feels like home." Pause. They stepped through together. At once the world exploded into color. Not harsh or blinding, but soft like sunrise through mist. They found themselves standing on a boundless plain of light, where shapes of old friends and forgotten futures moved like constellations. In the center of it all stood a single tree, its roots stretching into infinity.
Every leaf was a moment, glowing faintly.
Finn approached it, and the leaves rustled with the sound of his own laughter through the years. Jake trotted up beside him. So this is the tree of stories, huh? Finn nodded.
Guess so. Every life we touched, every memory we made.
It's all here. Pause. They rested beneath the tree's branches. Above, the sky shifted through every color of morning. Finn leaned back and closed his eyes, feeling sunlight wrap around him like a blanket. In that stillness, he heard the voice of the world. Not loud, not distant, but intimate. It whispered, "The heroes are not the ones who conquer the dark. They are the ones who remember the light." Finn's heart softened. He thought of all their journeys, not as battles, but as reminders.
Every time they saved someone, they were helping the universe remember its own kindness. Jake sighed happily.
You know, man.
I think this is it. Finn turned.
The end? Jake grinned. The beginning that looks like an end. My favorite kind. They sat in silence, watching the horizon dissolve. Time no longer moved forward or back. It simply rested. And in that rest, Finn realized something simple and profound. Every story, no matter how wild, how painful, how bright, eventually becomes quiet. But in that quiet, it doesn't vanish. It becomes the hum beneath everything, waiting for the next heartbeat, the next laugh, the next beginning. Pause. The tree shimmered, and petals of light began to fall around them, each one a memory returning to the first flame. Finn reached out, catching one on his palm. It glowed softly, showing a younger version of him and Jake running under the Candy Kingdom's sky. He smiled. "We did good, huh?" Jake chuckled.
Yeah, bro. Real good. Pause. The light grew brighter now, not consuming, just peaceful.
They stood together, shoulders touching, watching dawn spread across eternity. There were no more questions to ask, no more roads to follow, only the warmth of friendship, ancient, endless, alive. As the glow surrounded them, Finn whispered, "What happens now?" Jake's voice was calm, steady. "We rest, we dream. Then maybe we start again." The light folded gently around them, and the world exhaled. The door behind them closed, leaving only silence. But it was the kind of silence filled with promise, pause. And so, dear dreamer, the story of Finn and Jake's secret past drifts quietly to rest. Pause. In their world, and perhaps in ours, every ending is just another dawn. The laughter, the courage, the small acts of love. They never vanish. They sink softly into the river beneath all things, waiting to rise again when someone new dares to believe in friendship. As you close your eyes tonight, imagine that river flowing beneath your own dreams. Imagine the first flame glowing faintly in your chest, warming the corners of your memory. The meadow, the river, the door, all of it lives inside you now. Pause, breathe slowly. Let the world grow quiet. Know that you are part of the same light, the same endless story of kindness returning home. And when sleep finally finds you, let it be the gentle dawn beyond your own door. Because somewhere in the calm between heartbeats, Finn and Jake are still walking, still laughing, still keeping the first flame alive. Pause. Good night, traveller of stories. Rest well.